Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next installment of the Black Male Leader Roundtable. My name is Dr. Eric Charlton. I created this Harnessing Happiness platform as a way for Black men to talk about their happiness journeys, some of the things that we have had to overcome throughout our lives to helps to level out or substantiate our happiness, and talk about some of the growth that we as individuals have had to go through. We talk about mental health a lot during in our line of work, but not a lot of discussion that goes around post-traumatic growth, about some of the aspects of life, the obstacles of life that we have had to overcome to help to give meaning to our happiness. So I want to welcome you all today. Before I allow my guests to introduce themselves, I wanted to choose a younger group of Black men, get their perspectives. I haven't had that yet on this platform. So I really want to talk to them, understand them, and learn from them. I'm considerably older than all three of my guests today, but there's things that I can learn from them as well. They have a different perspective, different lived experiences. So I just want to open the forum up to them. Just a little housewarming note for my audience. If there's any questions, just put it in the chat. Any statements that if one of the gentlemen say today that spark interest in you, you can definitely feel free to chime that in, put it in the chat, and I will do my best to read those and further the discussion. So without further ado, I want to welcome Tyler, Jalen, and Richard to the discussion. And I like to have them introduce themselves. So I'll go ahead and start with Tyler first. Go ahead and introduce yourself and let us know a little bit more about yourself.
Well, hi, everyone. I'm Tyler Rice. I am a consultant in the professional services arena in Atlanta, Georgia. I recently started my job a year ago, so today's actually my 1 year anniversary of work. And before that, thank you. I went to Alabama State University, and I served in student leadership for a couple of years. And I've had a chance to really meet a lot of good people and to hear about what makes people happy, and also do some thinking about myself and some inward thinking about my happiness. So I'm excited to have this discussion today and to learn a lot more from my colleagues here today.
Yeah, thank you, Tyler. Go ahead and let Jalen introduce himself.
All right. Greetings, everyone. As you said, I am Jalen Law. I'm currently living in the city of Mobile, Alabama, and just wrapped up my last school year of teaching middle school. So actually in the fall, well, in the next couple of weeks, I'll start pursuing a physician assistant program at Sanford University. So I'll be going back into healthcare. So that's kind of pretty much, I graduated from Tuskegee University in 2018 with a degree in nutritional sciences, and then went straight into graduate school at Tulane, Master in Microbiology and Immunology. And for the last 2 years, I've been a science teacher, as I kind of took a gap year to kind of decide about either going to medical school or PA school. So.
Wow, impressive. Well, thank you, Jalen. And last but not least, Richard. I'll let him introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Eric, for allowing me to be on this platform. It's so nice to meet Tyler and Jalen as well. But now my name is Richard Hairston. My background is heavily in marketing and communications. I recently was with Montgomery County Adams, which is the Alcohol, Drug Addiction, Mental Health Services Board for Montgomery County and Dayton, Ohio. So I'm very familiar with the mental health space. I'm currently right now with Premier Health in their communications and marketing department. I went to Wright State University, graduated in 2019 with the BA in Communications and Media Studies. I'm super excited for today's discussion and to talk about the journey for Black men and their happiness and their overall mental well-being. So I'm super excited once again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm definitely geeked and excited that you all are part of this discussion today. So I'll just go ahead and start with, I'll start with Jalen. Jalen, what defines your happiness?
I think what defines my happiness is more so a state of mind, not necessarily, where I'm at in life or what's going on. Just kind of like having that piece of not too much worrying on, what's going on, things that are out of control, pretty much just really focusing on those things that are in control. And that's pretty much kind of that happiness. Kind of all my friends and family know I'm kind of the type A cousin or family member or brother or coworker. So just really now, I just kind of notice it from all my life experiences, from just college into graduate school, and then, wrangling 120 something seventh graders. So now I really just kind of focus on taking day by day to really just kind of harness my happiness. It's really just focusing on those things that I can control, and those worldly things, those things that we really can't, have any say-so about or really can control specifically, not to worry about those things. So just kind of focusing on just everyday things and tasks and taking it step by step.
That's awesome. And that's already a golden nugget of knowledge. Is just, you said, you can only control what you can control. And that's so poignant and so relevant now. Richard, what about you? What defines your happiness?
For me, I would say that what defines my happiness, I really look for those things that keep me grounded. And a few of those things, or a couple of those things, would be my faith, number one. But then also what keeps me grounded is being able to pour into people. I'm a natural connector. And I'm also I kind of, just carry a counsel spirit as well. So being able to connect people to resources, being able to help individuals by being there and seeing people at their best, that is what defines my happiness, or harness the way that I can harness my happiness.
That's awesome. Awesome. Back to that, what Richard just said about the connectivity. Tyler, this question is for you. What are your current sources of your happiness?
I'd say that for me, my current sources of happiness really come from one, setting that baseline of, like Jalen was saying earlier, when no matter what's going on around you, having that inward like rock of peace. So that's my main source is the inner peace that I find from living my day-to-day life. And I'd say like other sources of happiness come from the people around me in my life. They're able to add happiness to my life. And also something I've been getting more into recently, fitness. That's been a good source of, I found that afterwards I'm happy. So for me, to wrap it up, main sources of happiness would probably be finding that inner peace for one, and two, spending a good time around good people, and also fitness. So
awesome. So it's like several different things, which is fantastic. Like I said, all of you are considerably younger than I am. So in your lived experience, Jalen, what has your wisdom taught you about your happiness thus far?
I think my wisdom has taught me, like, so far is just that when it comes to happiness, just to really, you have to accept that life is a continuous learning experience. And once you kind of accept that, failure is not defeat, that it's a learning experience and you can learn from those things, you just can kind of move forward, with your happiness. And that's leaning on that wisdom on, a lot of times we overstress ourselves, especially now as young people. Everybody's always constantly posting their goals and achievements on social media. And sometimes you'll start beginning to question yourself, because I'm like, right now I had to tell myself, like, you're so goal driven. And even though you don't purposely compare yourself to where everyone else at with your peers in your life right now, because you're constantly seeing it, you do have to remind yourself, like, you're running your own race, you're moving at your own pace. So that's kind of just the wisdom. And really the last couple of years, I just had to learn, like, you know, you got to move at your own time. And especially now, like being 26, that whole, probably out of all, you know, from teenage to, you know, my early 20s, now I'm kind of moving into my late 20s. That's kind of been the most difficult thing, just trying to stay on that state of mind of, okay, now we've moved through kindergarten and stuff together. We graduate high school, we go to college, we get graduate school. Now everybody's kind of moving at different rates of getting married, having children, buying homes, you know, buying vehicles, starting businesses. And you really have to just ground yourself in, like, okay, it's okay for me to move at my own pace. And getting older, you know, pushing 30, not reaching your goals by 30 is not a death sentence. So that's pretty much kind of the wisdom I've just gained so far.
Wow, that's awesome. And you sort of segued right into my next question that I was going to ask about success. And I know, you know, all three of you have garnered a certain degree of success so far, and you know, really doing well within your own perspective fields. But I want to have you guys talk about, you know, the link between success and happiness. So, Richard, what is your thoughts and gleaning around success, and how has that impacted or not impacted your view of happiness?
That's a really good question, Eric. I think that it's important for me to define my own success. And that is what kind of keeps me grounded in joy and happiness. I can't let no one else or no other thing define what success looks like for me. I have to define what success looks like for me. So, and then celebrating those small wins. So at the beginning of the year, I participated in a vision board party with a mentor and some other individuals. And I told them, this year I am going to applaud myself for what may seem small to me, but you know, be excited about those small wins. So just like Tyler mentioned earlier this year, he started his workout journey, his fitness journey. So did I. And that was a small win for me, and that was a small win of success. So, but I still celebrated that for myself. So when I look at success and I look at happiness, I think that is important that you have to define that for you, and you have to find ways to celebrate that in your journey, in your happiness journey. So that would be my response.
Awesome, excellent answer. Because you know, all of you are in your 20s, and society has a what you know, society dictates as a blueprint for success. And you know, Tyler, how do you overcome that society's pressure of success and that influence and impact of on your happiness?
That's a good question. I feel like that right there is something that I struggled with a lot in college. I was very goal oriented. I was always focused on moving on to the next task, the next goal, because I feel like that was what was expected of me. And in that, I took very little time to celebrate even the small wins, like Richard was saying, big ones, small ones. I feel like I was always moving on, trying to conquer the next mountain. And I feel like it's really important for individuals to really celebrate those small wins and take a moment to look at where you've come and where you are now, and to be content in your present and then move on for your future. So it's kind of
Wow.
what my thoughts are.
Wow. Yes. Yes. I know you guys have seen Winning Time, that series on HBO Max. There's a quote, real quick, and the guy, there was a gentleman who's speaking to Jerry West, and he's talking about Jerry West was struggling about the Lakers and how many wins they were having. And the guy told him, don't overlook the cliff for the edge. and really talking, what you just talked about, Tyler, about not overlooking small steps, not, and it's so easy to do in today's society, especially for younger people who that may be all you're seeing is people appearing to be so successful everywhere you look on social media, maybe, within your own sphere of influence. That is so relevant. And thank you for that little piece of not overlooking small beginnings. Both you and Richard have both said that. So thank you. Jalen, how has happiness showed up for you during your life? How is this notion of happiness, how has it showed up for you?
Can you elaborate a little bit more on the question?
Yeah, in terms of can you reflect back on some of the events in your life that just made you very happy?
Yeah. Surprisingly, a lot of people may think, accomplishing, great titles like when I was elected Mr. Tuskegee or getting into a graduate program or getting into your program of choice, those are things that brought like the most happiness, but they actually didn't. I think the most times where I'm the most happy be the ones that it's least expected. And it might just be something as simple as, somebody pay for your meal for it or something. Those small little acts of joy and sincerity that people do, like especially at work. If I was running late one morning, I didn't have time to have breakfast, but my coworker showed up, with my desk like, I brought you breakfast. Those little small things that people really don't really think about, those really probably bring me happiness the most. And also just spending times with friends and family, those things that people take for granted, really, and not necessarily those large achievements.
Awesome. Richard, what about you? What are some events in your lives that has made you the most happiest?
I would say I would have to concur with Jalen. Just those small acts of kindness, receiving small acts of kindness from individuals. But then I will also say the moments that have also made me the happiest is when I can do something for someone else, and enrich someone's life in another way. Those moments have made me happy and joyous, and just being there for people, I would say have created some happy moments for me.
Awesome. I'm gonna definitely ask all three of you this question. But as Tyler first, who has been most influential in your happiness journey?
That's that's a very good question. And to that, I'd say my happiness journey has it's not been linear. It's been a journey where a lot of individuals have poured a lot of things into me. And so I'll name a few. So a few individuals I'd say have really been influential in my happiness journey. I'd say one, my grandfather. He really instilled in me like the importance of inward reflection. And also I'd say my girlfriend Diane, she's also been a great help in my happiness journey. Just as far as teaching me and telling me more about expressing how you feel and your emotions. And that's really gone a long way for me because happiness is an emotion that you can control. And if you're having a bad day, you can stop and find the happiness in the moment and where you are in life. So I'd say those have been two of the most influential people in my life as it relates to my happiness journey.
That's awesome. I must tell the audience, for full disclosure, Tyler is dating my daughter. They've been dating for a while, so it's nice to hear that that he has her as a source. But that's not the reason why he's in this discussion. I think he's a phenomenal young man. But as a side note, I'm happy that he's a part of this discussion and he sees the value in that relationship. So Richard, what about you? What is some of the most influential people in your life that has added to your happiness?
I would say, I really would say my mother. She has taught me and my siblings that it's not what you have that makes you happy, or it's not your success that makes you happy. And funny thing is, I feel like my older sister has done a good job of carrying that narrative or that piece of advice along with us. It's by, who you are and who you are to those around you. And, like that having my mother instill that in us early on. It's not by what you have, it's about who you are inside, what the state of your heart, the posture of your heart, is really what I've gotten from my mom and her teaching us and bringing us up as young children and young adults. So I would say that I really have leaned and gleaned into that wisdom from my mother.
Awesome. I love that. I'm gonna put it in the chat eventually, but the posture of your heart. I love that. I think, when you think about happiness, think about your individual happiness. It really is doing heart work, doing elements and aspects of your heart, what makes you truly you and unique and happy. So I thank you for that, Richard. Lastly, Jalen, what's the most influential people in your life that has provided you the most happiness?
I don't think I could really just direct it to one single person, just simply because I always tell people like I have the best village like known to man. Pretty much every like step throughout life, I've never ever felt like I was by myself or alone. And all my friends, all my family, I have a large family. My dad has a lot of brothers and sisters, and so does my mom. And everybody always has treated me like I'm their own son. Same thing with, just siblings and stuff. So, and I really just can't say it's just a one person because everybody that supports me and those people know who they are. But as far as just of somebody that really inspires me of always, being happy, I would say that would be my younger brother. He has autism and he's nonverbal. But one thing, every time anybody ever meets him, they always say, no, your brother's just always so happy all the time. And, I never met somebody. And I think that's just a reminder for me every day. I was like, even though, he cannot hold a conversation, he has a barrier when it comes to communication. And he does, have special needs, that doesn't get in the way of his everyday happiness. As long as he has his iPad, something good to eat every day, and people are constantly showing love and stuff, he always has a smile on his face. And something that's so simple, it doesn't, not a car, not a job, not anything that's attainable, I always keep him happy. And so that's always my reminder, like, keep it simple when it comes to trying to achieve happiness.
Awesome. Keep it simple. Yes. Now, I'm gonna ask you all this question as well. Since we're talking about growth and talking about different aspects or obstacles that sometimes get in our way, Tyler, what were some of the obstacles that you had to overcome to either capture your happiness or recapture your happiness?
So I always tell the story about when I first went to my university. I went to Alabama State University, located in Montgomery, Alabama. For those who don't know, it's a HBCU. And in high school, middle school, some elementary school, I'd always found myself in environments at school, just due to the demographic makeup, where I didn't always feel supported and encouraged. And when I attended university at HBCU, it was the first time where I really felt as if, I was understanding who I am. And I feel like a big obstacle in my happiness journey was understanding me and feeling comfortable being me to the fullest. And I really feel like in college, with just being around a really great group of people, really good support system, whether it's my peers or the people I looked up to, and also the people who may have came in under me who I learned from as well, really helped show me that knowledge of self and being aware of who you are and really standing 10 toes into who you are really goes a long way into making you happy about life in general, because at the end of the day, no matter what happens, when you realize that you look into the mirror and you are able to be proud of who you are and the things that you've done, I feel like it goes a long way. And for me, that was one of my biggest journeys, really understanding who is Tyler and what makes Tyler happy.
Wow. Wow. That's good. Jalen, what about you? What were some of the obstacles that you had to overcome?
Um, I think one of the main obstacles most recently was really just that transition from undergrad, kind of into adulthood. That's just it's a huge, mountain to climb, almost like even a swimming pool, like they just push you off into the deep end. Like everything like in undergrad is very, cause you have a huge support group. Your friends are always next to you every day. Now we're kind of spread out across, from state to state. And everybody used to always say, get ready, post-grad depression is real. And I was like, I'll be fine. I've always navigated different changes through life and stuff, but it was just totally different. And I really think just the way I overcame that, like again, I said before, was just like really having to understand, like, moving at your own pace. And it was very difficult once I, made it to Tulane into our graduate program, because mostly everybody's in that graduate program. They're either going off to enter into medical school. It's kind of like that one stop to kind of get your grad school experience, make sure, get your GPA up, all those things. And, as we're in school, everybody was having a great time. They wasn't really struggling with the curriculum. I was at the same time, while we're in the grad program, they're already receiving their acceptances and stuff into school. And I was just kept questioning, like, why is it not happening for me? I was seeing myself putting in a lot more time than everyone else studying. And I couldn't really understand why I wasn't grasping the content as quick as everybody else, because I was so used to being at the top. And then it really was just recently, after I taught for 2 years, and I finally got into the program, and I was telling people, like, really, God really doesn't make any mistakes, and you really just have to kind of take your time. And sometimes when you're put into a position or with people, like, I never thought I would be a teacher. But literally in those 2 years, I turned that school upside down, brought in, extracurriculars for the children that they've never been able to. And even then, even though I'm done working with them, still trying to, beef up their athletic programs through fundraising and things like that. So I always say, if you feel like it's not your season, that season still has a reason. So, and a lot of times it's not about you. You might just be a vehicle for bringing positivity to somebody else's environment. So I know I was kind of long-winded with that response. I apologize.
No, but we all need to hear that, Jalen. We all need to hear that. Now I'm writing that quote down. I'll put that in the chat too. That particular season still has a reason. So once again, for people in the audience, just listening and hearing about all of your lived experiences is something that we can all learn from. Richard, what about you? What are some of the obstacles that you have had to overcome for your happiness?
Yeah, so one of the main obstacles that I had to overcome to have my happiness and to keep it, I'm 25 now. I think when I was around 22, 23, I really had to work through self-comparison and understanding that, that it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And then also from a biblical standpoint, the race is not given to the swift nor the strong. So really just being able to look at my life and look at it from the lens of the journey that God is taking me on, and the stops that He has me at, so on and so forth, and seeing that it's all a part of the bigger picture, and it's all a part of my making and my shaping as far as where I'm going and my future and my destiny. And being able to really like hone in and really have an understanding that there's no need for me to compare myself to anyone else's journey, because we all have different journeys, and that's what makes all of us so unique and so diverse in this life. Like if we all had the same journey, like life would be boring. We wouldn't have awesome stories like Jalen and Tyler and even you, Dr. Eric. So being able to understand that and being able to lean into that and be grounded in that, and really, for me, trust God that everything is going to work out and everything happens for a reason. And I have to go through certain detours and certain stops because I need to gain wisdom, or I need to meet this person, or so on and so forth, a part of my journey. So being able to not compare myself to anybody that's in my age group, or even people that may be older than me, like life is a journey. So I would say.
That's awesome. And it's very easy, even, adults, we all do it every once in a while. We compare ourselves to others that we see either on social media or in our walks of life. And it's very easy to get sucked into that way of thinking of what am I not doing? Because there's always somebody who is doing phenomenal work. But like you said, Richard, is great advice for younger individuals, for all of us, to understand and accept your journey. Know that there's going to be some twists and turns, some potholes, maybe you stepping into the lake by accident, but it's all a part of your continuous journey, and what Jalen said about the continuous experience. So I'm taking notes, guys. So the next question, what do you need? Well, let me ask Tyler this. That way you all don't respond at the same time. But what do you need to take away the rest of this year with to add to your happiness? So is there something you need to take away for the rest of the year to help to maintain your happiness?
I'd say for me, it's really important to the goal that I have for this year, to really just focus on the day-to-day routines that I'm building right now. I'm started to construct from trial and error, like Jalen was saying, the life outside of school. Still getting used to that, but I've started to construct a routine that I find brings me happiness, and like taking walks throughout my day, or eating at a certain time, or exercising, or doing different things. And for the rest of the year, I think it'd be really important for me and my happiness to really keep my routine going, and to build upon that, and to also getting new experiences. That's also a really big thing for my happiness. I love meeting new people, trying new foods, and engaging in good conversations. So those are some things I'm taking away for the rest of my year.
Awesome. Jalen, is there something that you need to take away for the rest of the year to substantiate or maintain your happiness?
As far as like remove it from my life, I think more so just being a characteristic of, learning to positively be more selfish. A lot of times I've kind of learned just over the years, I have a bad habit of overextending myself, meaning, if I see an issue that's going on, versus is, within an organization, a club, maybe a community service project I'm a part of at work, school, family, anything, sometimes I have the tendency to want to play the hero or, the be all. And sometimes you really have to learn for yourself happiness to kind of take a step back and realize, even though you are capable, allow somebody else with the same capabilities to realize in themselves to show up and do it for themselves. So pretty much, that's pretty much just my whole thing now, is just really on focus on letting somebody else step up to the plate for the rest of the year.
Awesome. Oh man, you said something right there in terms of and we all do it, that from time to time we overfunction, doing things for others that they are willing, that they are able to do for themselves, and we all do it. I think Black men are no different. We take on other people's burdens. We carry the load a lot of times in our lives, and sometimes we need to let go of some of that to get back to our happiness or maintain our level of happiness. Richard, last but not least, what about you? Is there something you need to take away the rest of the year?
So it's so funny that Tyler and Jalen mentioned what they mentioned, because I'm in that same space. So how Tyler talked about getting into a routine to keep that happiness, and then how Jalen talked about not overextending. Those are two things that I'm incorporating in my life, and then especially with the overextending, that has been big for me. That was something that last year I feel like I was taken through and was able to process and not overextend myself to a degree where I'm just entrenched in, something that is not filling my cup back up. So thank you, gentlemen, for saying that, because that was a good reminder. But as I look at the remainder of 2022, focus. What are my key areas of focus, and how can I drive for happiness for these, remaining months of the year, and how can I drive for the success that I define for the remainder of the year? So focusing on my health, focusing on guarding my heart, focusing on some accomplishments that I do want to start working through. So that is where I'm at as far as keeping my happiness and staying uplifted, is being able to focus on what I have set before me.
Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful bits of knowledge, gentlemen. Jalen, I'll ask you, ask all three of you guys this question too. Jalen, what would you tell teenage Black young men to think about as far as their happiness? So gentlemen who are maybe 10 years younger than you all, what would you tell him?
Well, the first thing I would tell them, and just like I would tell my students all the time, not to stress yourself out, but you need to write your goals down. It's something about speaking versus actually, taking a pen and paper and actually to see it in words. And with outlining your goals and stuff specifically, like on paper, it kind of cuts out some of the worry on, or your mind just going a whole lot of places. It really kind of generates that focus. That would kind of be the one thing. And also like live in the moment, but also understand every decision you make affects you later. And I didn't really understand that till now. Even the smallest things, like even a lot of times, my 7th grade students, they would be like, I don't know, when am I ever going to use this or whatnot? And I'm like, well, didn't you tell me you wanted to be a nurse? Didn't you tell me you want to be a doctor? I was like, I promise you, y'all science textbook I was using to study to take the MCAT and stuff, this information is the same. So just kind of not taking things in life for granted, but also creating times to where you're not so goal oriented, that you do reach out to make time with your friends, make times with your family, because you're not getting that time back.
Awesome. Looks like we lost Tyler. I'm sure he'll come back. But Richard, what about you? You know, what would you tell that 15-year-old young man who is maybe not thinking about his happiness?
I would tell them to really appreciate where you are at now. Appreciate, if you're 15, 16, appreciate living with your parents. Appreciate being in high school. Appreciate not having bills. Appreciate not having to report into work every day. Just really appreciate those benefits of life that you have during that time, because what I've found, life flies by. And before you know it, you'll be graduating college and you'll be starting a job or going into grad school, and your responsibilities become a little more, I will just go ahead and say strenuous. Like, you know, the responsibility is really on you now at that point. So I would say to them, enjoy those simple things of life. Because and it's funny that you asked this question too, because I've been thinking back to that time period. Like, I really had like so much free time, and I didn't have no bills, and I didn't have really no responsibilities, but yet I was kind of somewhat of this little raging teen with all these hormones and just thinking I'm just running the world, running the house, and it's like, no. So that's what I would tell my 15-year-old self, or someone else as 15-year-old that's a Black man. Enjoy that and enjoy your family, because this time will fly by, and before you know it, you will have those responsibilities, and you'll be asking someone, please take them away from me.
Yeah, definitely. Tyler, what about you? If you talk to a 15-year-old young man?
I'd say get a journal and begin capturing how you feel at the end of the day. You journal once a day, once a week, but really understand who you are, how you think, how you feel after certain interactions, and to really understand that, because once you know yourself, then nothing can stop you. And I think it's really important to understand yourself at an early age, because the years after high school are full of many adversities, trials, and tribulations. And it's really important to have a good understanding of who you are, so that when the time comes and your whole world is turned upside down, you're able to stand on your toes, because you know who you are and what you're capable of. So that's the biggest piece of advice that I can give.
Awesome. I know as people watch this video, especially for young men, you hope they can glean some wisdom from you three. Do you have any questions for me? I'll reverse it.
Well, right before we moved on, it was one more thing I wanted to add on, because I'm glad Tyler mentioned about journaling. I think I really just kind of noticed, even just like my parents were born in their 60s babies. So it's kind of, they had me a lot older. So it's just a generation gap, honestly. And I just really noticed, like, just especially with Black men, being able to communicate your emotions or your feelings accurately, to the point of it doesn't cause a negative, drawback to those around you, and also to yourself, just for your own happiness. I'm glad he mentioned like the journaling, but also just being able to verbally communicate. I think it's a stigma. It's always kind of like, even growing up, being instilled in you to survive in the world as a Black man, not to be timid. Don't ever let people see you cry. Don't complain a lot. Don't do this. Don't talk about your emotions, period. And that kind of just festers why you have people that just kind of blow up, and especially the Black man, when it just comes to like just self-harm or harm to others. So really just communicating those feelings, I would tell somebody. that's younger right now, really learning how to be okay with talking about your feelings and communicating with them, whether it is through journaling or talking to somebody else, or, you know, to your bros or to your family or to your mom, whoever it is. So I just wanted to add that before we moved on.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, and before, you know, if you have any questions for me, before that, in your walks of life and in your work career, people around you, is what you're noticing that with Black men your age or maybe a little younger of the you know, the suppression of emotion? Do you see that in your walk of life? Now, I'll go ahead and start with Tyler. He's shaking his head.
Yes, I see a lot of that with friends, family members, and even in subtle ways. I feel like as a Black man, it's hard for people to really express how they feel or
Mhm.
to talk about how they feel. And, you know, you can be having a conversation with someone, and all of a sudden it's like something may tick in them. And it takes a while to, I'd say, for people to understand that if you don't communicate your emotions, if you're not understanding and really recognizing how you feel, then it's like a balloon. It can all just pop. And I noticed that a lot in people my age, colleagues, friends, family members. And I think that it's really important to recognize that, and it can really strengthen the future if that's understood.
Wow. Tyler, that was very, very powerful what you just said, because all of us can relate to that. Richard, what about you in your sphere?
So what I see a lot is the lack of awareness around it's okay to seek professional help.
Mm,
I started my journey about 2 years ago with seeking professional help. That's where I see the stigma is individuals not really understanding the true value that counseling, clinical counseling, mental health counseling can really bring to your life, like the significance around that, as far as Black men and just even outside of Black men, but just, you know, in general. There is help out there, and the help really does make a difference in your life. So, but I'm hopeful that, you know, because mental health is such a big topic right now, or a big issue, that stigma, you know, starts to decrease and die off, that, you know, seeking help is not a bad thing, and that it doesn't make you less of a man or less of a woman, or it doesn't make you crazy or anything like that. So that's what I'm seeing, but I'm very hopeful that, you know, that stigma would continue to die.
yeah, awesome, awesome. And just to add to that, Richard, you know, I talked to someone, and it's not so much that there's necessarily something wrong. It's just maintaining your level of balance, or, you know, I hate the word balance, but your level to maintain, like, you know, everything is okay.
Mhm.
But talking to someone, and they may see a blind spot. You know, we all have blind spots. Maybe there's
Absolutely.
something I'm not thinking about that they may bring up. And, oh, okay, I didn't think about that particular issue that way. But yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be something grandiose that you're really struggling from minute to minute. But we all
Mhm.
can benefit from talking to someone from time to time. So
Yes, and
thank you
that's a
for that.
great point that you bring up. Yes.
Thank you,
And then
Tyler.
I want to ask you,
Go ahead.
so where are you at with your happiness journey? What keeps you grounded? Um, what can we take away from you today? As you mentioned, we're all younger than you. So yeah, I just want to hear from you.
Wow. I try to keep it brief. My my happiness journey. Um, there's, you know, several sources of my happiness. Some of which are very, very obvious. My my family, my wife, my children, but also having a source that's bigger than you. And we all, you know, we have different religions, different ways of thinking about God, or the different religions, but understanding that there's a source bigger than you. What keeps me grounded is my network, talking to people. I'm a researcher by background, and just being curious. I've learned that about myself. I'm very curious about the world, how the world thinks, my role in it, and I I have learned to have a happiness quote. My quote for happiness is, my happiness will continuously grow and be shared with others, because that's what life demands of me. So it's a shared experience. Um, because I'm a researcher as well, I am in that prime age group that researchers say that happiness dips. It dips at the lowest, between 45 and 53, the lowest, and then it picks back up when you're older, 60 and above, and it's more like a U shape. But even with that, I don't feel like, of course, and that's very subjective. Very happy to see my kids flourish. Happy to be in a relationship that someone who loves me unconditionally. And I definitely have grown in that area. I experienced loss at a young age. My father passed away at 6, so I view it as an experience that garnered me to think about the world differently. Not having that father figure, and having some hardships along the way. Being very stubborn. We talked about that 15-year-old young man. I was very, very stubborn at 15. No one could tell me nothing at that age. But just learning and growing, and through trial and error. I think that we don't do enough trial and error, rather than for planning and executing. There's not enough room for play, and I think that we all need to play with our emotions. Think about curiosity about what makes us tick, what makes us happy, what makes us frustrated, what triggers us. So that in a nutshell. And I love to see young men such as yourself flourish as well. You guys are doing phenomenal work and phenomenal growth. And over time, I think you'll realize that, and I think you probably already have realized that title, positional title, doesn't mean anything, because it can be taken away, and it's not fulfilling long term. After you get that, we tend to get into a state of always wanting more, the next step and the next step, without thinking about being in the moment and thinking about your accomplishments right now, today, and just being happy that you're just that you're able to breathe the air right now, that you're relatively healthy, and just being happy of just being a human. So that in a nutshell, that's where I come from.
So let me ask you, you mentioned about the idea of happiness not being linear, like there's ups and downs. And my question for you is, in those moments where it's not necessarily at a peak, but maybe near the trough, how do you increase or sustain your happiness? Like, how do you push forward to find that level of peace and happiness that you're speaking of?
That's awesome. I think it's it's an art to it. There's a language and an art to happiness, and I to some degree I figured out that art. Like I said, I'm very curious. I like looking at things that maybe other people aren't interested in, just to understand how something works, or a new aspect of life. And I think about the things that we take for granted, the things that I have taken for granted in my life, the taken for grantedness of life, things that we do on an everyday basis, and not necessarily thinking about it in the moment, and what it means to me, what it means to us. So I tether myself to constantly learning, and we use the phrase learning as a way of being, constantly growing, constantly learning. There's always something to learn and explore, and that makes me happy, not being fixed.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you. So, any other questions?
So if you could give like what's your number one, like a one sentence, or and I made up a word here, for like somebody that's like in their mid-20s, a Black man, like what's the advice you give to yourself in like 25, 26?
That's a great question, because I can, recall my 25, 26-year-old self, very ambitious. I remember 25 buying a Corvette. And at that time, that was a big thing. And just I would tell myself, just be in the moment, just slow down. And you're okay, who you are right now. There's no need to rush the moment. There's no need to put too much thought into your accomplishments. That you're okay right now. May not seem like it, but I was just in a different mindset, because I was very, very ambitious. I was gaining a lot of accolades and working, and I would definitely tell myself, money's not the end all to happiness. I really, really love this discussion. I thank you all for talking about your definition of happiness, talking about your lived experiences, some of your obstacles. Do you all have a quote that you live by as we wrap up? Is there a quote that you sort of helps you throughout your life? Now, go ahead, and Tyler.
I'd say there's a couple of different quotes that really keep me going. Two that come to mind today are, one, if there's no struggle, there can be no progress. And that really helps me in times where I feel challenged and the light isn't always as clear to see. But I know that I'm still struggling, so I'm progressing to somewhere. But something else, it's a quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson, and it says, "Do not go with the path of me, go instead where there is no path and leave a trail." And that quote is very inspiring to me, because it really shows that you living in the moment and don't necessarily do what others think you should do. Do what you think is best for you, and live your life to your own compass and go where you want to go. So that helps me out a lot.
Tyler, you were breaking up right when you were saying the quote. Can you quickly say the quote again?
Yes, the quote was, "Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail."
Awesome.
Yeah.
Excellent. What about you, Richard or Jalen? Do either of you have a quote that you live by? Not both at the same time. Either one.
So for me, it's the African proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I have really realized that in life, like if you do go by yourself, you can go like fast, but if you want to go far and really create impact, you really have to have a community to do that. So that's something that I've been living by.
I like that. And you have sort of hinted throughout your particular discussion around that sense of community, that
Yes.
sense of connectedness. And I can definitely understand you when you say that. So thank you. Jalen, do you have a quote?
Not necessarily a quote, and it's part of a scripture, but it comes from Psalm 34. I will bless the Lord at all times. His praises shall continually be from my mouth. Many of the righteous are afflicted, but the Lord delivered them from them all. And really just that last part, that many of the righteous. So you can do everything right in life, and you'll still have, obstacles, you'll still have hurdles, but at the end of the day, you'll be delivered from them. And that's just kind of been like my whole thing. I used to actually recite it with my mom a lot. And and I write it on tests, I write it on everything, just because, and all that you can do personally, you'll still have those issues, but eventually you'll come out in the end.
I'm going to close out at that note. I know we're right at 12:30. Once again, Tyler, Richard, and Jalen, I thank you tremendously for offering your lived experiences to the topic of happiness. And I wish you all well in your future endeavors. And everyone else, you'll have a fantastic afternoon, and I'll see you next time. You guys have a good day.
You too. Thank you.